look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. I don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio. That's the big one, iHeartRadio. We are the only 24-hour-a-day, 7-day a week, all cannabis, all the time broadcasting network on iHeartRadio. And we ask that you share us with your friends. A big thank you to KDK Distributors for being nice enough to give us a grant to keep us loud, proud, and strong. And I encourage people who are listening to please go to KDK Distributors and say thank you for being nice enough to keep us on the air. It is Monday, and on Monday we like to put a spotlight on all the wonderful things cannabis can do for the body, the spirit, the mind, and the soul. And we bring on with us my joint hosts, Lynn Mathre and Al Byrne, founders of Patients Out of Time, to bring us information about what's going on in the world of healthcare and cannabis. So with that said, I'm going to pass this joint conversation over to my joint host here in the big joint broadcast on Time for Hemp. Lynn and Al?
Thank you, Casper, for hosting us again. Folks, Casper asked us to begin a program like this about 2.5 years ago, and we were going to do it for 10 weeks. That was 2.5 years ago, and we haven't missed many weeks since.
No, we sure haven't.
I think that's an indication that the interest in medical cannabis is growing exponentially. What people want to know is the truth about medical cannabis, what the science says, not what theories and opinions may be out there, but what the science says. And so in that regard, Patients Out of Time is an educational national charity. We've been in business about 20 years, a little over 20 years actually. And in that 20 years, we've been teaching doctors and nurses in the United States and other healthcare professionals, social workers, pharmacists, et cetera, about the therapeutic uses of cannabis. And, of course, after its discovery about the endocannabinoid system, which you and everybody you know has. And we'll talk about that a little bit today, too. But you can find information about Patients Out of Time at 2 locations. I'm dropping W's. It's at medicalcannabis.com. or patientsoutofTime.org. And I said Patients Out of Time is an educational company, and it is. In fact, we're about the only company in the United States that teaches about therapeutic cannabis in an accredited way. That means that the doctors, nurses, pharmacists, et cetera, that take our courses for a fee, a relatively small fee, and pass the test, get coveted CMEs, medical education credits that these folks need to keep their licenses current in most places, in most states. But they can do it online, and I would highly recommend that you insist that your healthcare professional, doctor, nurse, pharmacist, etc., take these courses. They're available at, again, dropping the W's, the medicalcannabisinstitute.org. I'll repeat, the medicalcannabisinstitute.org. So that's all the background stuff. What we do on these shows, as you know, is we interview world-class experts that have a relationship with medical cannabis in some way, researchers, clinicians, people like Lynn who are educators, and myself. Today we have a clinician. Dr. Dhanabalan has been on this show before, about a year ago, But now we're going to play catch up. And then we have to, before I introduce it, Doctor, we have to, full disclosure that she and I are working with an organization called Veterans for Compassionate Care, very much involved in the planning and soon-to-be operation of a treatment facility in Washington State, which we'll talk about a little on the show. But just so you know that we do have a relationship with each other that goes beyond just interviewer and person on the other end of the phone. And with that, Dr. We just call her Dr. Uma because that last name is a killer, even for me. But Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, medical doctor. Hey, welcome, Dr. Uma.
Welcome, and thank you so much, Alan, Mary Lynn, and Casper. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm Dr. Uma Dhanabalan. I go by Dr. Uma. Like you said, the last name is a killer, but Dr. Uma, and I am actually in the beautiful state of Portland, Maine right now speaking to you folks, but I practice in Natick, Massachusetts at my clinic called Uplifting Health and Wellness, and I've known Mary Lynn and Al for a little over 3 years now, and we are very passionate about what we do and very much building on this Veterans for Compassionate Care program that will soon to be in Washington State.
There you go. Well, look, let's. You've been on before, but there's a lot of people listening around the world that didn't hear that interview, Doctor. If you could just give us a little bit about your background, why maybe you wanted to become a medical doctor, how that moved you over into cannabis, why you're in Massachusetts, whatever you want to do. But then I'd like you to just sort of morph into, and then we'll morph into what's going on right now clinically with you, okay?
Great. I would love that. My origin, I'm originally from India. I've been in the United States since 1970. Got into medicine. I did my first life in family medicine in Charleston, South Carolina. I am a Jersey girl, went to medical school there in Rutgers. And then my second life was in occupational environmental medicine at Harvard. I did my MPH there, my Master's of Public Health, got very much involved with heavy metals, lead and beryllium, which led me to the state of Washington, where I was working at the world's largest plutonium cleanup site. Little did I have any idea at that point in my life in 2010 that cannabis was going to be so much part of my life and part of my practice. While I was in Washington, I did my OCMED and family practice work there, and at the same time, my mom had been diagnosed with IPF, which fancy term for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, with no reason for a cause. Idiopathic meaning no cause. She had never been a smoker, never been in any type of an occupation that could have led to this illness. And I remembered watching a program with her in Washington where they spoke about cannabis in Israel being used for patients with lung cancer, COPD, and asthma. And my whole life as a physician, I had told people not to smoke, and in my occupational environmental medicine, if they were exposed to exposures, what kind of surveillance and what kind of protection they needed to wear. So did not fit in my agenda of understanding how cannabis could be used, and especially smoking it, to be used as a medicine. And that's when my journey began about 6 years ago, when I started to learn about cannabis. And at this point in my life, I have seen over 4,000 patients between the ages of 18 to 96 in Washington State that I've done the recommendations for. And at my clinic here in Massachusetts, over 350 patients in the last year between the ages of 18 to about 85. And I am not promoting anything to do with opioids at all in my practice. I do not have a prescription pad for opioids or narcotics. I do the recommendations for cannabis, and I do believe this should be a first-line option, not a last-line option for medical care. And the evidence is there, the science is there, and this medicine has killed nobody. Nobody has ever died from cannabis. And many, many people struggle with all pharmaceuticals and narcotics. and I make the statement, cannabis is not an entrance drug, it's an exit drug from pharmaceuticals and narcotics. So that's me.
Doctor, you just raised, Doctor, you raised a question in my mind now. Let me get this right. When a patient comes to you, you're going to tell that patient up front that you're not going to prescribe them some sort of narcotic or pharmaceutical. It's just not in your treatment protocol. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. 100%.
Do your patients, I suspect again that people know this in advance, you tell them, you advertise in that fashion. Is there any hesitancy about that? Or do people say, hey, you're really taking away an option that I'm considering? I mean, what's the reaction there?
Well, there's plenty of my other colleagues doing that. So they have those other doctors that if they want that, they can go to. But they are very clear when they come to see Dr. Uma that is not an option because that's what they're trying to get away from. They're coming to me for a whole new approach, a holistic approach, and this is about total health care, THC, total health care. We are giving them an option away from their medicines and to actually open their lives. And I have seen in my practice where we have been able to reduce, if not eliminate, all their opioids and decrease their other pharmaceuticals. And I see a awakening in my patients. I actually take a picture of my patients the day they come in and for every follow-up appointment.
Cool. That's a great idea.
What happens then?
Do they notice? Do you share that with them down the road?
Absolutely. They get to see their pictures, so they themselves are seeing, a picture is 1,000 words, right? So the day they come in, we are able to see all their medications that they're on because as a certifying doctor, I have to pull up what's called their PMP, which is the Prescription Monitoring Program, which tells me what medications they're on as far as opioids. And then the patient also provides their list of medications that they're on, and we take a photograph. And then on their follow-up appointment, we're able to look at the same measurements, i.e. their medications and their prescription monitoring program, and take a picture. And they are able to tell me what changes have occurred in their lives. And some of them are even going back to work and getting a life and not being a burden to the society or themselves, which is a huge impact for families.
Uma, how do they, this is, you're saying what I was hoping you were going to say, but let me just be even more specific here about this issue of your patients coming to see you and getting cannabis as an exit drug, which of course you and I agree with completely.
Absolutely.
But how do they know that? How do these patients know to go to a doctor like you to get some information about medical cannabis? How do they know that? Who tells them that?
Well, that's a very good question, Al. And, working with you folks with Patients at a Time has helped me a lot because you folks have connected me to people and you've actually empowered me and embraced me to be able to be an educator in the public. And so, my sentence is, hi, how are you? And what do you know about cannabis? And so I've been able to get the word out, and patients themselves are actually hearing about it. They're speaking to their healthcare providers, and that has been a really challenge for our patients because patients are going to their healthcare providers and kind of getting three reactions is what I come down to. One is total alienation. One is, I don't know anything about it, but if it's working for you, great. And the third population is, if it's working for you, but I can't recommend it because I work for an organization where we get federal grant money and we can't write the recommendations or talk about it. So patients are getting this from you folks with what's happening. And we've got 24 states now where medical marijuana has been put into legislation, and we have 5 states that have it as legal. So it's out there, and patients are understanding that this is an option. Sanjay Gupta has done a lot of work, and but I think people are saying, I am tired. I am tired of living this life zombified, and I want to live, and they are asking the questions. So they're coming to us educated.
Excellent. Look, we got to take a break.
Okay.
And we're going to come back, folks, in just a couple of minutes with Dr. Uma, and we're going to go, Doctor, we'll think about it over the break here. We'll talk about it, but we want to go right into your clinical experience that you're having there in Massachusetts on a. Yeah, okay. All right, folks, we're going to break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
It's written right here. It's absolutely clear that ganja herb is the healing of the nation. So don't have no fear. It'll always be here. It will be here for enough generation. Yeah. They want you to feel tipsy-turvy. Tipsy-turvy. Puppy dog, come kissing on your face. They don't want to smoke the sweet lemon curry. You know, keep the smile upon the children's face. You pick him up, you lick him down, and up and try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back. And this a musty calling bone. You chop it down, you burn it down. The ganja plant coming right back. Using the science laboratory resource. So many illness, they call it herb cure. So why don't you give I and I the permit? Oh, yeah. So I and I can go on and run. Rain come falling, make the ganja grow, and the sun come shining, the breeze the falling blow. You pick him up, you lick him down, you up it like to run him down. The ganja man come right back. Using your sense, laughter resource. So many illness, they call it herb cure. the sweet lemon calling. Oh my Lord, keep the smile upon the children's face. Oh, you pick him up, you lick him down, you often try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back. And this a most holy boy, you pick him up, you run him down. The ganja man coming right back. And when the rain come falling, make ganja grow. Yeah. And when the sun comes shining, the breeze, the pollen blow. You pick him up, you lick him down, up and try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back. This a most holy boy, whoa, 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 yeah. Ganja man coming right back. You pick him up, you lick him down, you up and try to run.
Yes, herb is the healing of the nation, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here on the big broadcast, healing the nation and bringing an end to prohibition so that people who need medical cannabis are not considered criminals, but are just considered patients like everyone else. With that said, we are having a joint conversation with our joint host and a joint guest here on the Big Joint broadcast on Time for Hemp. And we're going to get back to that now with Marilyn and Al and Uma here on Time for Hemp. Marilyn and Al?
Thanks, Casper. This is Al Byrne here for Patients Out of Time. Again, medicalcannabis.com, patientsoutaftime.org. And we have Dr. Uma with us today. She is a Massachusetts physician who has done an enormous amount of work in the state of Washington and is coming to us today from Portland, Maine. And you were up in Portland, were you not, Uma, to look at a dispensary that you have a connection with? And maybe you could tell us about that whole process. You've said
yeah.
patients.
I don't. For just to make it clear, I have no connection with any dispensaries because I don't have any connection. But I did have the opportunity to go visit a dispensary in Bedford, Maine, Canuvo, and met with Sage, the owner there, and had the opportunity to see what my patients are experiencing when they go to a dispensary, and her dispensary in particular. Very beautifully done. There is a formal process of where they verify that you are a patient. And just to let people know, I do the recommendations in Massachusetts, and if a patient meets the criteria, one of the 8 criteria in Maine, PTSD just being added on, that they can then have a certificate which would allow them to go to using a Maine dispensary when they are visiting Maine and spending time there. So the patients then have the opportunity to go to a dispensary there and get their medicine at one of those dispensaries. Most locations, you have to call, make an appointment, and once you make the appointment, the patient comes in, gets verified. They are taken back into their area where then they are educated, especially many of my new patients are totally naive to how this medicine can be delivered to them. Smoking is one option. So the main delivery systems that we talk about is inhalation, ingestion, topicals, and others. Inhalation, we have either smoking or vaporization. So the patient walks in, they talk about all the opportunities of the different types, and then they are given the different medicines options, i.e. edibles, and they have done it so beautifully with dosing, 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams, different types where they even have rolled products for them. They teach them about the different strains, i.e. either sativa or indica, and how each of those have properties and the different strain availability of their products, different fancy names that they have, and how to use it, how to deliver it either morning, afternoon, evening, if it's for insomnia, if it's for anxiety, if it's for nausea, appetite, pain, whatever their symptoms may be. seizures, spasms, and the list goes on, they are able to educate them, and then the patient is able to walk out and have their medicine with them and then be able to come back in again whenever needed.
What's a rolled product? I don't know that expression.
A joint. If they need it a lot of patients don't know how to roll, and they don't don't know how to do that. So some people consume it in a pipe, but some people still like the concept of a cigarette type product, which is easy, and they actually have them rolled for them and in a cigarette form. And the different types of names.
Excuse the question. I was just going to say, excuse the question. I just never hung out with a lot of Jersey girls, I guess. I didn't hear that before. But
we still roll it.
I got a question. So in this this establishment which you're describing, and I think it sounds like it's quite well done and thought through. Do they have a healthcare professional on site there?
No, they don't. But Canacare is right across the street from them, so the healthcare providers are very nearby. And we're a phone call also. They know when the patient walks in who the doctor wrote the recommendation, so they can call the doctors. But that's not even needed actually, because the patient's there at that point, and they're not looking for the doctor. They're looking more for education and how to get their products and how to consume it, and what are the ways that they can consume it.
Okay, well, now this brings up a question that I raise on this show a lot, Uma. It sounds like these patients in this establishment you're describing are getting a lot of, quote, education. Who educates the people that are educating? How do they get that knowledge, and how good is it compared to what you would hope is there?
Well, that's a really wonderful question. What I'd like to see is what I call a patient therapeutic specialist. That, sort of like, when you go to pick up a pharmacy medicine, you have got somebody there that meets you and knows what medications you're on and is able to educate you. We're not there totally, but Connecticut, believe it or not, Connecticut has that system because Connecticut's people are under the Department of Consumer Protection. Massachusetts and Maine are under the Department of Public Health. So the Department of Consumer Protection has pharmacist people that are educating the patient. And right now we don't have that. They're calling themselves so-called bud tenders. I really don't like that name. But these people are kind of people that have been trained through experience and time. But there is no formal education. And what we're trying to do, which brings up Northeastern Institute of Cannabis, where I teach medical marijuana, we are trying to create a program in Massachusetts where people can be trained and they will get a competency certificate. And we are trying to do programs where we can have better people that are educated and that have gone through some type of a formal training that do take these positions that are treating and educating our patients.
Yeah, I think that's essential. It's medicine. And
absolutely.
We license people that clean people's nails, for Christ's sake. So,
right.
that isn't important. But we got to, I don't know, it just all seems so obvious to me. Anyway, look, let's go to another thing here. Massachusetts and Maine, I talked to a rabbi that runs Rabbi Khan. He runs a dispensary in the District of Columbia. And we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and he was very, very clear and quick to point out that the District of Columbia probably has the best cannabis law in the world, in the country. And the reason is, and I think you'll agree with this, if you were to practice your craft in the District of Columbia, a patient would come into you and you thought that patient could be helped by cannabis, your decision would not be limited. You would be able to recommend that cannabis for that patient depending upon your personal experience and your medical judgment. Now, that's not true in Massachusetts or Maine, is it? Isn't there some kind of list made up by cops and robbers that you alluded to?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Massachusetts is kind of a little bit more liberal, where they let doctors practice medicine. You know, this is the problem that I face out. Frickin' politicians need to step aside and let me practice medicine, and doctors take doctor-patient relationships. They don't have a medical degree, and unless they do, they should not be telling us to practice medicine. But coming back to your question, Massachusetts lets me decide for the recommendations. If it's a debilitating condition, I can write it. If it's been a chronic condition, I usually use more than 6 months. I actually use more than a year, and if they've tried other medications. But Maine has a list, so does Connecticut, and so does many other states have a list that's made up by politicians to tell me how to practice medicine. Massachusetts lets me practice medicine and lets me decide what the debilitating condition is. So I can write for most conditions.
What about Maine?
If not, Maine is not like that. Maine has a list.
So how does that work? I mean, if you can write a recommendation in Massachusetts for something that's not on the Maine list,
then they can't get a Maine certificate. I can't give them a Maine certificate. If they don't qualify for Maine's conditions, then they don't qualify for a Maine certificate. All they qualify is for a Massachusetts certificate. And Massachusetts has one dispensary that opened last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday.
Yeah. Let's go.
So everything else is the black market.
So, and then I guess the reason that you are able to have a patient go to Maine at all is because there's some sort of reciprocity agreement.
If they meet Maine's criteria for those conditions, those 8 conditions that they have listed, if let's say for a patient that I see in Massachusetts that has PTSD, that patient qualifies for a Massachusetts certificate, and if they're going to be in Maine, they would then qualify for a Maine certificate. But not all conditions qualify for a Maine certificate.
Right, but I guess let me be more specific. Do you have a license to practice medicine in Maine? And
no.
I think no. So isn't it just this? Yeah. So this is some sort of government reciprocity between your state and Connecticut, Rhode Island. Isn't there a lot of that going on in New England?
No, it's actually not, and that's kind of very difficult because we have Rhode Island right next door, and I can't do that for Rhode Island. It's only for Maine. Connecticut, I cannot. Rhode Island, none of that. Nope. Only Maine.
I misunderstood that. I thought that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Let's go to some patients.
Yes. Let me tell you my patient stories.
Go ahead.
I have had the opportunity, like I said, in Washington, my oldest patient was 96. My youngest was 18. In Mass, my oldest patient has been about 85. But I've had the fortune of seeing patients in 3 categories. I have patients that are totally naive to cannabis, i.e. never used cannabis. And then the other spectrum of patients that have been using it and self-medicating and now are coming in to get the certificate to make them legal. And then the middle of the line patients where they had used it 20 years ago, maybe longer, and are now learning about it and actually being introduced maybe by their children and understanding that this is a medicine. So those are my 3 spectrum of patients that I see. And I have conditions from chronic pain to seizures to cancer patients to my ALS patients, MS patients, glaucoma patients, and the fibromyalgia, migraines, nausea, loss of appetite. And I'm also getting into something that is kind of unfamiliar to me, but with my patients that have been on addiction, alcohol, methadone, Suboxone, heroin. And we're able to use this medicine to get them off of those other items as well and improve their quality of life. And for patients, they say, Dr. Uma, you give me hope.
Let's go to veteran patients. Have you had experience with them recently, and what do they say need do?
My veterans are kind of very special to me. As you know, we have been involved with a study to look at PTSD for veterans, and Anagami has been involved in it. But my PTSD patients are so special to me because we've had an epidemic of suicides. We are losing a vet every 63 minutes, approximately 22 to 28 vets per day from suicide. And what I have seen with my vets is that not just the vets, and that's something I want to bring up also, is the people that are around these vets, their spouses, their families, that are seeing how this medicine is bringing these patients alive, bringing emotions. I say my patients are getting a little sassy. These PTSD patients are evoked with emotions. It could be anger, it could be sadness, but some of these emotions that they've never had, and being able to be off their medications. The average PTSD patient is on, an anxiety pill, a depression pill, a mood stabilizer, an insomnia, and the list goes on, and other complications, side effects from those medicines that they have to take. But the PTSD patients are unbelievably improving, and hopefully the Veterans Administration will be able to educate their healthcare providers and not alienate these patients when they walk into the VA and say, I'm using cannabis as a medicine.
When I was doing counseling for the VA and the Agent Orange program, admittedly 2 decades ago, I really concentrated on combat non-vets being one. But we also saw, I agree, we saw the guys we were counseling greatly reduce their opiate pharmaceutical intake almost across the board to zero. Mm-hmm. But the other thing we noticed as counselors was there was there was quite a reduction in alcohol abuse. Do you
Absolutely.
See that in your practice as well, using?
Absolutely, and that's what's kind of sad because some of my patients, that have been under treatment for alcohol and going to AA, and then they use cannabis and they're alienated by their counselors saying, well, you just went from one drug to another drug. And I don't believe that. And that is absolutely a true statement. We are seeing our patients that, even like, it's interesting you say that because I'll have a patient that said to me, Dr. Mim, I used to like my cocktail after work or at the end of the day, and now I don't want that cocktail. I don't need that alcohol that made me feel a different way and, could get me into trouble. And here I'm using cannabis that is helpful, and I don't need much of it, and I've eliminated my alcohol use.
Yeah, that was me a long time ago. I used to do gin on the rocks, if you call that a cocktail, at the end of the afternoon. And when I shifted over to cannabis, I do love beer. I drink beer. I admit it. I love beer. But I haven't had a drink of hard liquor like that probably in 25 years. And I do credit cannabis as a replacement, I guess, for that. I was trying to relax. I was trying to unwind, and I think the cannabis is better for that.
Absolutely. And something I have to tell you as a physician, this whole concept of smoking it, just for people that have not heard it, Dr. Donald had done this research at UCLA which showed that Dr. Donald Taskin, that where they looked at lung cancer and they did a retrospective study where they looked at people that had used nothing, people that had smoked tobacco, people that had smoked cannabis, and people that used tobacco and cannabis, and the people that had actually used cannabis had less lung cancer than the people that used nothing. So just for that, that is real fact. And so I want to get that fear factor away as well.
Casper has said that I was late the last time on my break, or I was early. So I have to, Casper, he's a taskmaster, so we have to break right now, Uma. But
okay.
Listen, folks, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Dhanabalan.
Dr. Uma.
are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Yeah, stay alert with consciousness. Be aware what's going on around you. Remember, you are not the only human on the planet. And really, it doesn't make any difference to me what it is you are consuming. Just do it with intelligence. I mean, even if you're going to sit down and eat 2 big pieces of chocolate cake, well, that just means in about 30 minutes you're going to have a nap attack. So please don't be behind the steering wheel of a vehicle as you get drowsy. I mean, it doesn't make any difference what it is you're consuming. Do it with intelligence and awareness that there are others around you. If you do that, we will not need a nanny state. With that said, I'm going to pass this joint conversation back to my joint guest and our joint host here in the Big Joint Broadcast, A Time for Hemp. Dr. Uma, Mary Lynn and Al.
Thank you, Casper. Uma.
Yes.
Let's tell the people about Veterans for Compassionate Care. Again, full disclosure, folks. I'm the CEO. Mary Lynn is going to be the Director of Education, and this is what we're going to talk about really at the end of the show is various types of education. And Dr. Uma will be our Medical Director. And the concept is simple. It's actually what the doctor's been talking about basically this whole show, is that we're going to use cannabis as an exit drug, meaning that veterans, this is a veteran-only operation, and veterans will come to us, any veteran from any conflict, any time, any sex, we don't care. And they will come to us and they will be having problems with opiates, with pharmaceuticals, with alcohol, with something. And what we're going to do is actually, I guess maybe the right word is replace. We're going to replace those drugs with a plant. A healing plant called cannabis. So maybe you could explain to the folks. This will be done originally, folks, in Spokane, Washington. But we believe that the data we will collect, the success we will have, will be twofold. We'll see our patients' lives improve, and of course that means their families, loved ones, their bosses, everybody around them. And the other thing it will do, it will save astronomical amounts of money. I mean, if you're out there and you're a politician or you're a bureaucrat and you deal with these things, if you're an investor of the California retirement program, but whatever you do with money, you want to look at the replacement value of cannabis as compared to the pharmaceutical costs, the opiate costs, that Dr. Uma says they don't want to do cannabis. This is what they do, Al, and I understand that. They have an option. Go to these other guys. But Dr. Uma is saving the state of Massachusetts a fortune, and VFCC will too. So Could you give us your medical doctor? Why will this work? Why are we right to do this, Uma?
Oh, Al, I think you bring up a huge concept of not only quality of life and hope, but, dollars. This speaks to many, many people. What I believe is that, number one, these patients are coming to me, Al, not because of insurance, because I don't take any health insurance. So these people are coming, paying out of pocket to see me to get off of medications that they're paying oodles of dollars for. And I think the politicians and healthcare providers better get on the ball here. When you have patients that are spending, they come in to see me and they spend $200 for an initial visit. Veterans, we charge disability $150. Huge impact. If we have already seen that there is a 25% decrease in opioids in the states where legalization has occurred, what more do they need to hear? I mean, and it's going to happen in every other state. And we are not killing our people. Cannabis kills nobody. That's the mere fact that we know. Thousands of years, all the literature points that way. And you talk about dollars.
Right.
How about if we... Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we eliminate one hospital stay... Go ahead.
I was just going to say that these patients are really exercising what an economist would call ROI, return on investment.
Return on investment.
What you're saying is that they understand they can spend a few dollars up front, and that saves them tens of thousands of dollars in the long term. That's just humans exercising common sense. I wonder what the politicians are on that.
And I mean, if you can eliminate one hospital stay, that's averaging approximately $10,000. You have 1,000 patients. That's $1 million we're talking about. And I mean, these are numbers that need to be just looked at. But I think more so, Al, our patients are speaking out. They're saying, I don't want these meds. I'm not going to pay for these meds, and I am going to pay for a doctor that's not covered by insurance, and I am going to pay that money to get off of these meds. I mean, that's huge.
So you're saying VFCC will work in Washington.
Absolutely.
Because the patients already know it'll work.
They're there. The patients get it. I think what we're also recognizing, honestly, most of my colleagues can't do jack because they get a paycheck that is related to the federal government. Every hospital employee gets federal money, therefore they are told you can't talk about cannabis and you can't write the recommendations. I have been told that repeatedly by my patients that come into my office. My doctor can't do this. Period.
Well, we ran into that. I'll just tell a quick story, if I may, Uma. Patients at a Time had a conference in 2010 at the University of Arizona that they were co-sponsor of the medical school. In the middle of the thing, no kidding, guys, this is true. The White House called the head lawyer at the University of Arizona and said, if you let these guys have a conference, this Patients at a Time bunch, have a conference at your university, the federal government will remove every single dollar from the university system of the state of Arizona. And that dumb attorney believed it. And I think, and of course, it didn't happen. And doctors like Andy Wild and us went berserk, and we had the conference, and it was very successful. But the point is, that's a myth. That's a myth. See, but this federal government, this security state, they're looking over your shoulder. They want your license, Uma.
I know.
And in a way, I can see the reluctance.
I am not. My thing. I'm proud to say this, and I thank you and Mary Lynn for empowering me, honestly. When we first met, and when I started to get into this, it was like, I'm a family doc, I'm an OC doc, and blah, cannabis medicine. Now I say I am a cannabis medicine physician, and I'm proud of it. And I feel like I have not only been empowered by you folks, I am educating, and that is my passion. You know that. I believe education is the key of this. Let's get the myths out. Let's get the madness away and treat this as medicine. And that's where each one of us is part of it. Reach 1, teach 10 is my philosophy, and I am doing my part as all of us are here.
Well, it is all about education. With what we have accomplished, I believe, in the United States has been based on education. It just hasn't been thorough enough, and it's education that is totally missing
Absolutely.
in your
medical
world,
schools are not doing it. Medical schools, I think that
you went to Rutgers, right? You went to Rutgers, Jersey girl. Are they teaching a course? Why not?
Nope. Not in my medical school, not at Harvard.
Why not?
And I've been blatantly told this is not needed. How can we have intelligent people telling us that it's not needed?
How can Harvard say it's not needed when they've made Dr. Grinspoon Professor Emeritus? I mean, somebody's got to make a break here that what I say all the time, not necessarily applicable to you at all, but somebody's got to get some balls here.
I have grown more balls in my lifetime right now.
I agree with you. But I mean, the profession of medicine has to decide, doesn't it, whether it wants to be a profession of medicine or a profession of money.
Well, it's interesting you say that because my whole life, medical school, we're said evidence-based medicine. Evidence-based medicine. Well, guess what? We've totally, not followed that when it comes to cannabis. We have totally not followed it. We've taken it out of the pharmacopoeias. Most clinicians don't even know cannabis was in the pharmacopoeia from 1850 till 1942, that it was in our book, our Bible, as a medicine. I mean, we need to catch up with the reality. With all this internet and everything that's going on, how could we throw this medicine away?
Right. Yeah. The history is phenomenal. Mary Lynn has nursing textbooks, I guess they are, from the 20s or 30s, and the comments are very positive.
Yeah, I've got a great Broom Gardens pharmacy book for nurses, and it's got in bold, it eases pain and induces sleep. We thought, people, that's one of the two big reasons that they use it is helping them with sleep and chronic pain. So, we knew it then, and I think that's why we keep pushing, just as you do. Cannabis, that's the proper name. Marijuana they had to make up a name to get this medicine taken out of the pharmacopoeia, all based on lies, all based on myth, and we're just saying put it back in there. It's a good medicine.
Doctor, we got to take a break here. We got to end the show here in 3 minutes. How about you please repeat, your firm's name so that the folks in New England can know who you are again and how to get a hold of you, and URLs, whatever you can put out about.
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Dhanabalan. My clinic is Uplifting Health and Wellness in Natick, Massachusetts. The email is upliftinghealthandwellness@gmail.com. Our website is Uplifting Wellness, and I teach at the Northeastern Institute of Cannabis in Natick, Mass, and I teach Medical Marijuana 101, and our office phone number is 508-444-2324, and I am Dr. Uma, and I state cannabis is not an entrance, it's an exit drug. I'm sorry, let me repeat that again. Cannabis is an exit, it's not an, I'm sorry, cannabis is an exit drug, not an entrance drug from pharmaceuticals and pharma.
Cannabis is not a gateway drug. It is an exit drug. With the use of cannabis, I managed to get off of nicotine, and I know people who have gotten off of other substances that they were addicted to as well. Al mentioned earlier that he's not had a sip of hard liquor in almost 11, 12, 15 years. That's true of me. I drank heavily the 4 years that I was in the Army. Prior to that, I smoked marijuana. When I got out of the Army, the first thing I did was find a nice bag of marijuana. And I've only had a couple of drinks since. And the only reason why I've had a couple of drinks is because I found out that 3 beers put me to sleep. And 1 shot of hard liquor is just too much for me anymore. But marijuana just makes me wonderful. So it has been a exit drug from liquor and nicotine for me. Mary Lynn and Al, I'll let you wrap up the show here.
I want to thank you both and Casper.
Go ahead, Dr. Uma.
You're very welcome.
Well, thank you, Dr. Uma, and we'll, of course, you and I will talk soon and again. And I keep in mind, folks, that Casper will archive this show very quickly after its airing, so that the comments of Dr. Uma, which were, this is from a lady who is right there in the trenches of clinical cannabis work in New England. This is how she sees it, and of course she and I agree completely. But it's an instructive interview, Doctor, for a lot of people, and I hope a lot of people listen to you very, very closely. Until then, thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, and have a great day. Health and happiness to all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I want to remind people that we are a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week broadcast here in the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. And like a good joint, we are best when shared with friends. Remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's Time for Hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales.